Let's go there. 2026 prediction, Alex.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for you sent out a document to us to remind us to do some homework, which I really appreciated because usually I'm not that responsible. So I'm just going to look it up. Um, I think I think just two predictions, but I also you wanted bold predictions, and I'm a little worried that these aren't bold enough. So let me think it through a little bit. Um, I think on the because we've been talking about liquid biopsy and cancer prediction. I think it's clear that that's going to keep on increasing, right? And this is really a whole new industry being born, and for those not geeked out on this stuff, a big thing happened just a couple of weeks ago, which is Abbott, which I think is the world's biggest diagnostics company, huge firm doing all sorts of things, blood tubes and all that. Bought Exact, which is one of these next generation cancer diagnostic companies. So the fact that that Abbott went and bought Exact says that the mainstream is now buying into this as a huge potential market, not a niche market, not a quirky market. So I think that's going to just on keep on increasing and expanding. Um, from the one of my other favorite markets, which is sequencing market, the big news there through this year is going to be Roche, the giant Swiss pharmaceutical company, which also has about a $20 billion a year diagnostics company, has built its own sequencer. And so there's been a lot of drama around Illumina, which is currently the market dominator, with Roche coming up and what the it looks like the technology is super interesting. And these things play together, right? It's potential that Roche will even undercut Illumina in some areas, and that may in fact even further excite or drive this liquid biopsy cancer testing market. So it's very positive in terms of that flywheel. That more cancer testing of this type, let's call it advanced molecular testing, that increases. The vendors like Illumina and like Roche up and coming get more involved in that market. Big news this year was that Natera, which is the leader in these cancer tests, exceeded Illumina in market cap, right? Which means that the people delivering the tests or building the tests exceeding the value of the companies that drive the underlying technology. So that's kind of interesting as well. So I think the big ones for me is the kind of the it's all positive. I really don't see many negative environments. I think the sequencing business is getting more competitive, which is good for everybody with new entrants. And there's also companies, startups, Ultima and Element, entering it. Illumina is being really well run at the moment. It seems to be firing on all cylinders. It could potentially have a really good year. And then cancer testing, I think, as it starts to impinge more in the medical community and the medical guidelines start to include it, it's going to have a huge impact on quality of care for patients.
Got it. And your bold prediction is you think Illumina is going to do have like a fantastic knock it out of the park type of year. Is that's your take on the year of 2026?
Yeah, I think that too. Because they're not. They sound contradictory, but they're not. I think the market will start expanding again. The problem with the market for sequencing is it's been locked in and stable, and it has an unusual. The prices came down in the last couple of years by 50%, right? And usually, when the price of something comes down by 50%, the market expands a lot. But it only just expanded enough to make up for the price reduction. So Illumina's revenues just stayed flat. So the price came down, more people bought, but it didn't expand. And traditionally, it expanded. You brought the price down, it doubled. Let's say you halved the price. Let's say the market went up by a factor of four, and that hasn't happened. I think they might be getting out of that stage. And Illumina is working really hard also to add informatics into their sequencing story, and and really uh, um, leveraging their market power. I won't go into it in detail here, but I heard the story the other day how they're really putting the screws on people on the informatics side because they're starting to go, this is actually a classic, right? It actually goes back to the computer era. So you have sequencing, and for a longest time, sequencing, the interface to sequencing, the sequencing data came off and went into the informatics, which was the computer programs that interpreted the sequence, for example, to give a cancer testing report. And for the longest time, there was like this standard interface between the two, which meant that anyone could write the software. But what Illumina is now doing is they've taken their own software and they're making sure that only their own software understands the newest innovations inside the sequencer, right? Which gives them a real edge. And Illumina never did that. I was at Illumina for 7 years. We certainly didn't do that. And this is just rumors, but I did hear it from someone in the industry, let's say a very reliable source, not inside Illumina, but just saying no. Illumina is now starting to make use of the fact that they have their own sequences. Of course, they dominate that. They have the software, but now the two are kind of getting glued in really close together. And it's a little like the App Store problem at Apple, right? That Apple's apps can be even better, right, than other people's apps because they understand it, right? Everyone uses Apple's camera app because it's tightly coupled with the hardware. And so Illumina has always had that opportunity, but to the best of my knowledge, has never used it. So I think Illumina is working out how to make the best of what it has. It's defensive. It's been on the back foot for a long time, and I think maybe it's working out how to be on the front foot. However, back to the spirit of transparency, which you expressed, Lester, I predicted a boom year for Illumina last year. So here I am doing the same thing again. I don't know. Keep predicting. What is it? Stuck clock is right twice a day. So I'll keep predicting it until it's right.
But I think that that's pretty bold to say that you think that the sequencing market will have a boom year in 2026, right? That's actually, yeah, it's I could see it potentially. It's based on the applications. You're saying that there's just a lot more applications that
Yeah.
are useful and people are going to glom onto it, right? I just, I, if there is the pricing wars that people are predicting,
Contradicts
then
that
I think
completely. Quite
yeah,
right.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's going to be the challenge here, right? And will the now amount of usefulness, I don't want to say utility because that's a very specific word, right? Usefulness of this type of data will kind of overcome the amount of like pricing pressures that everyone's going to get into. It'll be interesting because maybe there is, right? I think it actually dovetails a little bit into my prediction. But before I do that, let's go over to Kostas. What's your